Okay, hey guys. I wanted to make this video on how I do class 2 preps. I know that they probably showed y'all maybe a YouTube video or a Dr. Stevenson video on how to go about doing these class 2 amalgam preps. Um, Usually they don't really show how they do it, so I just wanted to make something where you can kind of see how someone else here does it. So with my class 2s, I usually do the class 1 and the box separately. This has two functions. One, for when you do composite later on, usually you'll just do this box slot prep, and you don't necessarily have to do the entire occlusal table unless there's cavities there as well. And then two, you get to maintain your anatomy landmarks a little bit better if it's kind of separated from the class 1. So here the class 1's already done, and you'll see where I just essentially take that 245 burr. It is 3 millimeters long on the cutting edge, and I just go all the way down the depth, so about 3 millimeters, right in the middle of the contact, leaving myself a little bit of space for that enamel shell. So after this punch cut, then you just take that burr back in there again, and you're going to go buckle lingually and essentially make a little hot dog. So here you can see that I extended it just a little bit. I still have my enamel shell, so for your initial punch cut, you don't need to have the band there because you're not going to be near the adjacent tooth. Once you kind of set up where you want to go buccal lingually, then you can place your band, and that will essentially help you save the adjacent tooth if you happen to drill through your enamel shell. So with these type of donts, the contacts are pretty tight, so it's hard to get a band in right away. But maybe y'all's type of donts are a little bit better. So here I turn the speed down just a little bit, maybe about 20,000 RPM, and I'm just going towards the mesial and getting rid of that shell until it either comes out or you can chisel it out yourself. So here, obviously, the shape isn't going to be what I want it to be, but that's what we're going to work towards. So after I essentially kind of prepared my box, then I'm going to take this gingival margin trimmer. This is excellent for cleaning up the edges of your prep. So I'm going to use this on the buccal and lingual walls to help get rid of the little hooks that can be left by using a burr that has a round cross section. You'll notice that I'm using more of a scraping motion with this chisel, and ideally, you could chop down, but these plastic teeth are so hard and they don't really chip. They just kind of, it's easier to scrape. So I suggest using more of a scraping motion if you're struggling to actually use the chisels. After I use the gingival margin trimmer to help straighten things up a little bit, then you can go in with your straight chisel and actually really straighten that wall out for you. So again, you can do scraping motions, you can use the leading edge of the chisel. Maybe you'll be able to just chop it straight down if the plastic is thin enough. And I'm just going to go around all the edges of my box and just try and make those walls a little bit straight or straighter. So here I'm just using it on all sides. Now, like I said, you are leaving these hooks behind, so I want to use that gingival margin trimmer and just try and scrape it all the way up those buccal-lingual walls and try and get rid of those little hooks left by the burr. You do have two of these, one's for the mesial and one's for the distal, so you'll have to pick which one the slant is down into the clearances. So here you'll see that I put the band back in just so I don't scrape the adjacent tooth. That's not necessarily an issue with real teeth, but with these plastic teeth, it's a little bit easier to see scraping marks. And I'm just putting that angle down into that gingival clearance, and I'm trying to scrape up both the buccal and the lingual walls. So once you use your gingival margin trimmer to kind of get rid of that initial hook, then you can go back with that straight chisel and really straighten it out as well. So that's what I'm doing here. Again, you can use scraping motions. Using the leading edge of that chisel is really nice to help get some leverage. And then once that's done, then you can go ahead and connect your class 1 to your box. So here I just use a 330 burr and just right down the middle of the box slash the central groove slash the contact, and you're just continuing your pulpal floor straight to the box, and then you can start worrying about getting that initial shape done. So if you'll remember, the lingual wall of the box and the class 1 is going to be essentially straight. So I turned my burr down to about 20,000 RPM again, using a 330 here. And I'm just going to work on getting rid of that excess on the lingual wall and starting to straighten it out. As you can see, it still has a little bit of a hook once you get towards the actual contact area, but we'll use our chisels to kind of get rid of that and make sure it's real flat. What I was doing there, that chisel was too small, and so now that this chisel that is 1 millimeter wide can fit into the box, so I'll switch to using that. Now I'm going to work on my reverse S curve. So again, your speed's low, so 20,000-ish, and you're going to slowly work on trying to get that S curve. Now it's a very subtle S curve. You don't need it to have, very prominent. It's a little hard to see here, but you'll see that it actually leaves a ledge if you're continuing the pulpal floor above your box, because you're not going to the depth of the deepest part of your gingival floor on your box. So you'll see here, you'll hear a click. And that's because that there's a step now where that pulpal floor is higher than the box. So here you have a little excess, and you're going to go in with a 245 burr at the depth of your gingival box or gingival floor on your box, and you're just going to slowly work away that ledge that you just created. So again, using a slower speed here, you're pushing it against that buccal wall, and once you get rid of that, then you can go back in with your chisel and make sure that they're nice and flush with each other and that there's no step left. So here I'm just trying to refine some of those clearances a little bit, make sure that I got the dimensions I want. Again, nothing's perfect yet, but we're just trying to see what walls need to be made straighter, if they needed to be extended for clearance. After I use my burr, I usually always go back in with a chisel just to make sure that everything's straight. Now, right now, my axial wall on my box is rounded. For amalgam, you want it to be more straight and more at right angles. I mean, those slightly obtuse angles, but sharper angles. So the way that you do this is I take my 330 or 330 RGS and just put it right where I want those angles to be at a slow speed, and I'm just pushing it into the wall where the axial wall meets the buccal or the lingual wall, and that's going to help start to create more of that sharp angle I want. And then after that, as you can see, you kind of have it straightened out, but it's still got rounded angles. So you're going to go back in with your chisel and try and push it into those angles and make them a little bit sharper. So you can do it in all different directions, but the idea is that you have your box with sharp internal angles and then kind of slightly obtuse angles going out to the buccal and the lingual. Obviously, I have the benefit of not being in the mouth right now, so I can put a little bit more pressure, but you can also use your chisel with two hands in the mouth and try to get the best leverage you can. So I wanted to go back in with my burr and actually dig it into that corner a little bit better, just so I can have a sharper angle. So then I can go back in with my chisel and go ahead and try and straighten those out just a little bit more. Don't forget to try and smoothen up that gingival floor right where it goes into the contact. After you're done, see I have my clearances. You want to smoothen everything up. Don't forget smoothing your class 1. And here's the final product. I would say that my S curve maybe could have been a little bit more pronounced, so extending this wall just a little bit inwards, just so we have a little bit better of an S curve. Um, this little burn mark is actually a good reminder that I think you should not be cutting with water right now. Obviously, yes, when you're drilling on real teeth that are vital, you want to cut with water, but we're learning here. Water obscures your vision. It's just cumbersome to have to try and suction it constantly. So don't make things harder on yourself right now by using water. You're just trying to figure out what works for you. So I suggest cutting dry. Yes, you'll have some burn marks, but once you're refining your prep and smoothing it, you can remove those burn marks just by removing that top layer of the plastic. But don't make things harder on yourself than they need to be right now. Other than that, you see that lingual wall is straight. The box is, the angles could have been a little bit sharper, but we have a good dimensions there. It's not too deep into the middle of the tooth. We have all of our clearances. So hopefully this is helpful to y'all, and feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions.